How everyone doing this Friday evening? We back with another reading of The Young Lords by Johanna Fernandez, a radical history. We're gonna skip past the statement of unity today because we got a little bit to read today, and we've been kicking it before we jumped on here. So we about to jump right in. If you have the actual book, we're starting on page 333. We're going to go from 333 to 345 today. So I'm going to jump it off. And if did y'all want to screen share this? We can do that. Or does any of y'all got the book with y'all?
I don't have it on me.
Okay. But if y'all want to screen share, I can wait until y'all put it on the screen if y'all want to do that.
Comrade Melissa, do you know how to screen share?
Yeah. Give me a second.
Gotcha. Do you need the link? I can send you it.
Kwame, you just did, didn't you?
Yeah, it's already in the group, the Second Rainbow Coalition book reading group.
Where did it go? Oh, the book. I don't know where it went.
I can resend. I can resend it if you want me.
Yeah, because I don't want to keep scrolling.
Or this what I do. I'm gonna send it right back to it. Okay, there you go. Well, there you go.
All right, where are we at?
Hey, it's in the Second Rainbow Coalition book reading group.
No, which page I meant, sorry.
333. Hey, what's up, Elder?
How you doing? Out to the people.
Prior to
Yo, HA.
Out to the people.
Since I got you on here, I was all right. I was gonna wait till you got on the book reading to tell you. So on October the 8th, which is a Sunday, at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're gonna have a panel discussion with the elders for this book. I'm not gonna say this while we're recording, but I'm gonna try to reach out to somebody else. That's I think everybody is interested in being on the panel with y'all to discuss this book, and I definitely would love for you to be on there too, Che.
I'll be on it.
All right.
Is it the organizational decline? I think we have different page numbers.
One like 2 pages before that. So okay, right there.
Oh, right.
Yep.
You said
After the dot.
Gotcha.
You said October what?
October the 8th. That's a Sunday. Because we have been reading this on October the 6th.
October the 8th. What time?
At 7 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, if you're watching right now, you'll have an opportunity to hear from the original Young Lord elders. And hopefully we'll have a special guest for y'all. I'm gonna be reaching out to them, see if I can bring them on to be a part of this book discussion. So I lead that as a mystery person for y'all. You know what I mean? So you better jump on. But yeah, we're about to jump straight in here, starting at the very top, and I'm gonna kick it off. The death of Julio Rodon, however tragic, Rodon, however tragic, presented the Young Lords with the opportunity to activate hundreds of Harlem residents who supported them through a broad campaign around the issue of growing concern. The movement also presented an opportunity to challenge the growing consolidation of an emergent racist ideology that criminalized, dehumanized, and scapegoated people of color as thousands of New Yorkers were questioning the war in Vietnam. The integrity of government officials, declining wages, and the economic and political structure of the U.S. Society. As discussed in Chapter 2, in one of the most important political moves of the decade, New York Mayor Robert Wagner recrafted for white Northern audiences fear of the riots, the racially charged dictum of law and order, which Southern segregationists used to suppress the civil rights movement. A year later, in 1966, the New York Police Department ideologically defeated the Civilian Complaint Review Board referendum. The public relations firm it hired crafted a meme for white residents, blending two historically powerful ideological strands in American history: fear of political dissent and alleged criminal proclivities of people of color. But the fierce rebellions in New York's prisons had offered a counter narrative to the racist propaganda that New Yorkers had been fed. Among the groups of the New Left, the Young Lords had honed the most effective media presence in New York. They were positioned like no other group to launch what they might have termed a guerrilla offensive against law and order. It had the potential to push back the rebirth and consolidation of what was arguably been the most destructive and racially divisive ideology of the second half of the 20th century U.S. history. Yet, despite the organization's increased visibility and its growing ranks, approximately 1,000 members by the end of 1970, it was exhibiting signs of overstretch. The achievements at Lincoln and the continued growth in the membership couldn't contain the gnawing sense among some members that things were changing. The death of Rodin was known in the YLP as a gentle and compassionate comrade was demoralizing. For the YLP, assertions by prison officials that Julio Rodin committed suicide were read as a government-inspired conspiracy intended to provoke fear among YLP members and break the political will of his membership. They understood that Rodin's murder was a manifestation of homicidal government repression. Since the mid-1960s, left activists had indeed been aware of how COINTELPRO worked to frustrate the movement's goals and to encourage internecine struggles within its organizations. Government infiltration of the Black Panther Party was most visible example of this development. As repression intensified, radicals became increasingly pessimistic about their ability to affect change in the United States. Repression increased a sense of bitterness, cynicism, and disenchantment with the state of American democracy. Many turned their attention to the upheavals in the wider world, where revolutionary armed struggle had been in ascendance for decades. For the Young Lords, what would come next was clearly as dramatic as the group's previous 9 months of local actions, a shift from the ideology of community control to a nationalist battle against U.S. imperialism on the island of Puerto Rico. All right, so the next chapter, chapter 11, organizational decline. From the moment of their emergence in New York, the Young Lords articulated a radical critique of U.S. imperial power in Puerto Rico and called for the island's independence. The matter at the time was one of political principle and propaganda, not an immediate working goal. While the Young Lords cultivated revolutionary positions on abuse of power that expanded the globe, the organization also focused on the world just outside its office doors. Its day-to-day work centered on improving living conditions for Puerto Ricans and other people of color in the slums of New York and raising their political consciousness. It sought to change the world by changing a few square miles within its periphery. Yet, within a year of the group's emergence, a few members of the Central Committee began to explore the possibility of expanding the organization's influence to reach onto the island of Puerto Rico itself. The first public sign of the new orientation came in August 1970 when Central Committee members Juan F. Ortiz and Juan Gonzalez traveled to Puerto Rico to take the pulse of the island's political environment. Speaking to a student-packed auditorium in Rio Piedras Gonzalez drew on an analysis by the Students for a Democratic Society, whose 1962 Port Huron statement identifies students as a major agents of social change. He linked students' subordinate position in society to Puerto Rico's colonial relationship to the United States, to the global standing of the third world countries. Eager to take a place for the eager to stake a place for the young lords among the small number of active nationalist groups on the island during the 1960s, Gonzalez, in a rousing speech, affirmed the Young Lords Party's commitment to the struggle for Puerto Rican independence. Triumphalist in his assessment of the era's revolutionary nationalist consciousness, his speech overstated the post favoring independence on the island. While calls for independence in the late 1960s enjoyed greater popularity than in decades past, due in part to the tenacity of the Vietnamese guerrillas who appeared to push back the all-powerful U.S. Military, island protests cohered primarily around the privatization of public utilities, strip mining in the interior of the island, and on a college campus on the island, students organized mainly against the draft and reserve officer training corps recruitment. Anti-colonial and nationalist sentiments were certainly integral to the political propaganda of these campaigns, but the independence movement in Puerto Rico remained in political disarray after having been all but destroyed by government repression during the 1940s and 1950s. Through the Movimiento por Independencia have found some success in consolidating the disparate segments of the movement for independence and connecting with the 1960s social movements on the island. Support for independence was nowhere near as strong or widespread as it might have appeared to the Young Lords Party. In fact, groups' new course would be the prelude to collapse. The move to Puerto Rico was only an abstract idea when the trip began in August 1970. But just a few weeks later, the traveler's letter from Puerto Rico depicted the deplorable conditions in the shanty towns near San Juan's upscale Condado neighborhood. They assured Palante readers that the area, quote, will be easy to organize, unquote. The letter implied an intent to initiate political work in Puerto Rico and graft onto the island a political perspective born of mainland conditions. The very ideal suggested an outsized sense of the Young Lords' political organizational capacity. An internal party document prepared for the cadre months later revealed that, quote, initially, the committee had decided to take this step of beginning to build in Puerto Rico covertly. But upon further analysis, we understood that we had to prepare and consolidate the party for this historic event, unquote. Let me give this. Listen, I'm about to give you the host position. So I'm a co-host position.
Okay.
So if somebody try to get in, because I know I ain't paying attention while I read. Gloria Fontanez had political island connections and was the project's main advocate. The dynamic agitator and co-chair of Healthy Revolutionary Unity Movement, she had been elected health captain of the YLP a few months earlier, which made her responsible for important labor organizing in New York's public hospitals. Though not on the Central Committee, she had the ear of one of its most important members, Juan Gonzalez. The two had met in fall 1969 at a meeting of the East Harlem Health Council and were married less than a year later on July 25th, 1970, in a revolutionary wedding ceremony presided over by Denise Oliver and Felipe Luciano. In the summer and fall of 1970, the Young Lords underwent a series of abrupt changes that included the demolition of their demotion. Okay, listen. Let me get this. Oh, okay. Did you get kicked out, Alyssa?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so I'm about to give you the co-host to the new one.
Yeah, you froze, and then all of a sudden the whole screen just shut off.
Okay. I gave you a co-host to the new one. I gotta upload it. Screen share it again.
Y'all hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we screen sharing it. Again, it cut Alyssa out.
Right on. All right.
All right.
So probably look for that page with the
Picture.
Polana paper.
Yeah, that was one thing that they did real well, was spread the message out there.
Yeah,
And Subi has all those pages too. He literally has the whole entire every single article of Palante ever written.
that's what's up.
That's awesome.
Y'all know, like, and I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all know, like, Right On newspaper,
Yep.
that the White Panthers be doing and stuff. Like y'all could write articles and stuff in there if y'all ever get inclined to want to write something about whatever you want to share. So
Yeah, actually, that's funny. I was literally just brought that up in my meeting right before this. I was like, because somebody suggested us starting something. I was like, we can just add to something that's already started rather than starting
right,
something else.
yeah,
All right. So I think I'm in the right
yep,
spot. Yeah, Gloria Fontanez, right?
yep.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Well, actually, it's a little bit further down. In the summer and fall of 1970. Yeah,
I got you. Okay.
Right there. Gloria Fontanez.
yep.
Got you.
And everybody that's following along, like y'all could pinch the screen with your finger to make it bigger or smaller. If you turn your phone or if you're on the phone to the side, it's a lot easier to read. Uh, so in the summer of and fall of 1970, the Young Lords underwent a series of abrupt changes that included the demotion of their chairman, Felipe Luciano, the death of young Lord Julio Roldan, and the tombs and the armed occupation of the First Spanish United Methodist Church. The fallout raised questions and concerns among some members and confusion and demoralization in others. An open collective discussion seemed a necessity. A December membership-wide retreat could have promised a forum where members might have articulated their thoughts and analyzed their leaders' decisions, an opportunity to build internal democracy and assess organizational capacity. In the face of these traumatic developments, the Central Committee held a closed retreat for itself. Instead, the decision indicated that serious political evaluations of the Young Lords' direction and decision making would be centralized in the leadership's top echelon. Despite its rhetoric to the contrary, the Central Committee was moving away from the goal of building an organization of leaders, a process for which there is no shortcut. Within the Central Committee, the argument for centralization was likely strengthened in moments of crisis and by knowledge that government agents were operating in the organization. In late December 1970, the Central Committee held its private retreat. It tackled three major areas: the internal political life of the organization, contemporary politics and history, namely a contemporary assessment of consciousness and political crisis, and a run through of Puerto Rico's history of resistance, and finally a discussion of the classic questions in revolutionary political theory and practice. The first order of business was a review of self-evaluations prepared by each of the branches on their activities, challenges, and progress. This area also assessed progress on the issue of male chauvinism in the organization's ranks and evaluation of racism in the party. The next major area covered mainland and island politics, the state of the Black freedom movement in the United States, and a crash course on imperialism in Puerto Rico, as well as a history of the nationalist movement that also laid out the party's plans for building plans for building in Puerto Rico. The last section of the retreat reviewed Lenin's theory of the state and outlines Mao and Lenin's positions on the role of the Revolutionary Party, the development of leadership and cadre, and the application of democratic centralism. It also reviewed the contours and development by revolutionary groups of mass people's organizations. Party affiliates focus on a single sector organizing women, students, or prisoners that do not require require participants full political agreement with the party around the clock membership commitment. Okay. Let me read that again because I'm interested in what that means. It also reviewed the contours and development by revolutionary groups of mass people's organizations. Party affiliates focus on single sector organizing, women, students, or prisoners that do not require of participants full political agreement with the party around the clock membership commitment. Cool. By the retreat's end, the Central Committee had prepared a 32-page internal document for members of the organization summarizing its analysis of branch reports and self-evaluations. The document confirmed that the organization's formal and informal leaders were in high gear, developing political sophistication through community engagement, struggled to build a disciplined party, engaging in self-criticism, and studying history and theory and their application to the world. The document also offered assessments of the broader political conjuncture and proposed direction for the next year. Sections written by Pablo Guzman and Denise Oliver addressed changes in the civil rights and Black Power movements, an indication that the organization's leaders were wedded to mainland organizing. Finally, it outlined the goal of organizing in Puerto Rico. Let me see. I think you still the co-host. Okay. The branch reports revealed global trends to the Central Committee. They were well done, read the document, but can have been better. If National had provided more detailed guidelines, the branches were, quote, a long way from rooting out chauvinism and passivity at all levels, from Central Committee to Friends of the Lord, unquote. The cadre remained confused about the meaning of democratic centralism, and even the Central Committee violated it. But an educational tape produced by Pablo Guzman promised to offer clarity. Ministries were disorganized. Cadre were not being given enough responsibility. Higher levels of leadership were not giving enough guidance to lower levels, unquote. The organization lacked a rubric for evaluating political development of cadres and leaders, with a high point in membership of approximately 1,000 cadre in New York, Newark, Philadelphia, Boston, Hartford, and Bridgeport. The organization was struggling to integrate and cohere its component parts. The document quoted Mao on leadership to clarify the matter. Leaders, in this Mao speaking, leaders work out ideals and use cadre well. Such things as drawing up plans, making decisions, giving out orders, and directives are all in category of, quote, working out ideals, unquote. To put ideals into practice, we must will the cadre together and encourage them to go into action. This comes into the category of, quote, using the cadre well. To the challenge, Mao writes, lies in the tendency to, quote, point people on their merit or by favoritism, unquote. The best and honest policy is to make appointments on the basis of whether, quote, whether or not a cadre is resolute in carrying out the party line, keeps to the party discipline, has close ties with the people, has the ability to find his bearings independently, and is active, hardworking, and unselfish, unquote. The organization's major post-retreat goal was to hone political theoretical training through focused readings on Marxist economics and the histories of Puerto Rico and the Black Liberation Movement. To this end, the general weekly branch meetings, identified as the, quote, core of the democracy party, quote, will have to be upgraded from their, quote, undisciplined and boring, quote, states. The new perspective proposed to put the least and most experienced members in regular conversation at branch meetings. It required attendance by, quote, all officers, lords in training, no speaking engagement, personal problem, etc., except an extreme emergency excuses, unquote. This had to become the major site, quote, for solving problems and forum for reading the 13-point program and platform to build the discipline and organization necessary for true democratic centralism, unquote. Better recorded record keeping would be enforced, including daily and weekly reports, quote, from branches, officers, and individuals, unquote, to help the Central Committee assess the organization and identify trends and correctives. The report gave a brief evaluation of the Second Church Offensive, noting that despite rave public reviews, quote, internally, the Young Lords took the church at a time when we were weak, still in the midst of setback, the demotion of Felipe. Communications between levels were terrible. Central Committee and party were not unified. Male chauvinism was one of the worst parts of the offensive, unquote. In a situation that was, by its very nature, unwielding, the Central Committee's brief critique of the occupation's shortcomings seemed a reflection of its struggle to assert leadership after Felipe Luciano's departure rather than a sober portrayal of what actually happened. That the membership rallied at the church in the absence of his demoted chairman, and in the context of a risky armed operation, suggested that the organization had developed an internal culture and spirit that went on autopilot when fighting police, prisons, and the symbols of repressive state power in the city. The Young Lords were no longer upstarts. By the fall of 1970, a vocal layer of experienced cadre had matured, and their leadership at the church helped avert calamity. Although male bravado was surely heightened by the uncertainty and anxiety that made male members of the Young Lords may have felt, women were more prominent than ever. At least 3 women formed part of the group of 10 Young Lords assigned to defend the church in case of a police raid. And by the time of the occupation, the Central Committee included 2 women, Denise Oliver, appointed in June 1970, and Gloria Fontanez, who took Luciano's place, not his rank, in October 1970, immediately after Felipe's demotion. Having gone through such a defining event, the cadre felt entitled to a greater say in the organization's decision-making process. A growing number of members were already critical of the organization's strong emphasis on social service programs. But among the cadre and secondary leadership, the question of how the organization would refashion itself was up for debate. However, the Central Committee had already decided to shift the organization's political priorities away from service-oriented campaigns without convening a general discussion. Whether conscious or not, its shifting perspective was influenced by debates raging within the Black Panther Party in late 1970, which had by February led to a violent COINTELPRO-fueled internecine split. In line with the position of Black Panther Party Minister of Information Eldridge Cleaver, the New York Panther leadership contended that the time had come to respond to state violent campaigns of repression against Black radicals with its own campaign of armed revolutionary counter-violence, a move Cleaver argued that would attract a broader base for the party and lead to the overthrow of the country's economic and political system. Supporters of the Black Panther Party's top leader, Huey P. Newton, opposed the position, arguing that the call for armed insurrection was premature and would lead to the loss of political allies and support from the Black American community. Newton favored broadening the Black Panther Party's community social service programs pending the advent of revolutionary consciousness among a broad sector of the population of the United States. As the Black Panther Party's rupture worsened, the Young Lords Central Committee analyzed the political disagreement and put forth its own perspective. To this end, David Perez reported that when the Young Lords emerged in 1969, the leadership didn't quite grasp the purpose of a revolutionary party. Quote, Now, we understand that the party cannot get itself tied up in running service programs because the biggest needs of the people are its political needs. At the same time, we recognize that the importance of the material needs of our people, food, clothing, shelter, and must never forget that, unquote. The objective of a revolutionary party, he wrote, was to challenge capitalism, not merely, quote, its effects, unquote, such as hunger among poor children. As Perez's assessment suggests, the Central Committee had developed a critique of voluntarism, unquote. The term refers to a tendency to substitute individual will, acts of heroism, and self-sacrifice for collective class struggle. The tendency ignores the collective organization grounded in mass social blocks necessary to significantly challenge the apparatus of power. In the in the 1960s context, this elevated instead moral commitments to, quote, serving the people, quote, through, for example, the various self-help programs that the Black Panthers popularized and the Young Lords adopted. Such programs do not necessarily constitute substitute for class struggle, but in the absence of accompanying challenges to the power structure, they alone do not disturb the balance of power in society. In the cases of both organizations, however, their Serve the People program achieved important symbolic functions. They exposed the state, offered a compelling example of our idea of organizing society on the basis of human need rather than profit, and helped give revolutionaries a human face in their communities. Despite its break with these programs, the Central Committee New Direction proposed a close cousin of voluntarism as an alternative. In a section of the retreat report penned in Spanish by Gloria Fontanez, the Central Committee announced that on March 21st, 1971, the Young Lords will work with the Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico to organize a demonstration to commemorate the Ponce Massacre of 1937. She added that the group will use the occasion to announce the expansion of its revolutionary program to the island, a project that it referred to as the, quote, reunification of the Puerto Rican nation, unquote. During the retreat, members of the CC voted on this new direction. Pablo Guzman, Denise Oliver, and Juan F. Ortiz opposed it. Let me see. During this retreat, members of the CC voted on this new direction. Pablo Guzman, Denise Oliver, and Juan F. Ortiz opposed it. Gloria Fontanez, Juan Gonzalez, and David Perez supported it. As outlined in the Central Committee's internal rules, it was up to the chair of the CC to break split decisions with a double vote. The chair at the time, Juan Gonzalez, voted in favor. Fontanez continued, quote, "For the people of Puerto Rico, this will be an important day. In order to achieve our goal, we will need a disciplined party with a singular focus, our national liberation. This will be the party's greatest contribution to oppressed people the world over, much like the people of Vietnam have contributed to our struggle," unquote. The cadre's reaction ran the gamut of opinion. Gilbert Capone thought, quote, "it was a pretty good idea at the time," unquote, but remembers, quote, others saying it was a terrible idea, unquote. Gloria Rodriguez, quote, was opposed to the move instinctively, unquote. She continues, I felt we, quote, "I felt we didn't belong there. Most of us barely spoke Spanish, and we didn't know the political terrain. I remember distinctly that during my childhood trips to Puerto Rico, people used to call me La Americana," unquote.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's true, man. You know, it was racism amongst our people, man. I'll talk
Right.
about it later, man, but it was racism amongst our people.
Right. Her considerations were also personal. Quote, "I grew up in New York, identified with African Americans in the civil rights movement. My roots were here. I was in a relationship. I had a job. So that was a bridge beyond where I was willing to go for the party. I remember having conversations about what I would say if I was asked to go," unquote. Despite the organization's deficits, its members ship had grown in leaps and bounds. Its infrastructure needed reinforcement and cadre needed political training. The young lords also enjoyed a rich culture of debate and discussion. The atmosphere of learning and political exploration had intensified months earlier during the May 1970 retreat. Cologne describes the culture. Quote, "This is how it used to go down. These these are the things you should read to prepare yourself for this discussion, all kinds of discussions, and these are the two different points of view that have hit the table. Now, obviously, they hit the table at the highest level, the Central Committee, but study it, research it, and come back and talk about it. And I have to admit, that was probably the most intelligently and stimulating period of my life because it was like a really good college class, but with much more significance," unquote. He continues, quote, "I think the move caught everybody by surprise, but the cadre trusted leadership and really looked up to people like Juan Gonzalez and Denise Oliver," unquote. Even though the decision to organize in Puerto Rico had already been made, members expected that an intense period of discussion would set the young lord's plans on the right track. Anyone wants to take over?
I'll take over. That's okay.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm reading this from my PC, so I can see it way better than before.
Okay.
All right. Reflecting on the working class and the divided nation. Independently of the new direction, however, the Young Lords were knee-deep in building the party in East Harlem, the Bronx.
Sorry.
It's
I don't
fine.
know what. Go ahead.
It's fine. Just go into that goes away. The Bronx, Manhattan's Lower East Side, Newark, Philadelphia, and Bridgeport. In the context of a nationwide upsurge in labor strikes, some members wondered whether the Young Lords should continue to regard the lumpen proletariat as the major revolutionary force in society. Party support work for 400 striking Bronx workers, the majority Puerto Rican, sparked discussion in the power of labor. An article by Richie Perez on the Art Steel Company strike reveals some dimensions of that debate. Street and student groups have to begin to expand their concept of revolution and stereotype thinking that says you can only be a revolutionary if you wear a beret and a field jacket and rap a lot of Mao. Revolutionaries are judged not only by their theory but also their practice. Yep. Our striking brothers showed by their practice that they were revolutionaries committed to fighting our common enemy. They showed they understand the need to unite all our people in order to win our struggle for national liberation. Yep, that's the main importance. Even though Perez didn't quite hit the notes of the classic Marx's argument that workers are central to the revolutionary process, both because they are exploited and because of their objective social power as producers of goods and profit. He was attempting to challenge the student lumpen base of the organization. He built his argument on worker support for national liberation, which he likely misassessed or overstated. On the U.S. mainland, Puerto Rican nationalism, like the Puerto Rican flag itself, was primarily symbolic. It was an emblem of the strivings of Puerto Ricans as a besieged group, adjusting to a new country under the strain of racism, and of their hankerings for homeland amid migrations hardships. That Perez felt compelled to showcase the political consciousness of these workers in relation to their quote commitment unquote to national liberation indicated a trend in the organization. Increasingly, calls for the liberation of Puerto Rico were becoming the litmus test of a quote unquote true revolutionary. Whether consciously or not, the organization's leader had long been seeking consensus on what was now its new political perspective. Coming out of the retreat, the Young Lords leadership drafted a document titled, quote, quote-unquote divided nation thesis, a theoretical justification for the organization's partial transplantation to the island. Golon remembers the questions it immediately raised among the cadre. Quote, it was pretty clear Puerto Rico was a nation, but what was the role of Puerto Ricans here? Can there be such a thing as a divided nation? If it was, the YLP had the obligation to actually set up a branch in Puerto Rico. To be honest with you, on paper it had an appeal. The quote-unquote divided nation thesis posited that Puerto Ricans in New York represented 1/3 of a nation in exile, severed from the homeland by U.S. political and economic imperialism. The remaining 2/3 of the nation was in Puerto Rico. The thesis advanced the idea that regardless of its distance from Puerto Rico, the Puerto Rican community in the continental U.S. had an immutable social, cultural, historical, and political bond to Puerto Rico, even if members of the mainland community did not speak Spanish or had never visited the island. According to the Central Committee, the political statuses of Puerto Ricans on the mainland and the island were inextricably linked. As long as Puerto Rico remained a colony of the United States, all Puerto Ricans would be treated as second-class citizens. Reflecting years later, Juan Gonzalez explained the logic and motivation behind the young lord's new position. Quote, it may sound strange now, but our goal was to unite the divided nation, to unite the Puerto Ricans in the U.S. with the Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico, and to spur the revolutionary process. We believe that the chance of developing a revolution for independence was more likely in Puerto Rico than in the U.S. The young lords, quote, divided nation thesis, unquote, together with the other documents written by members of the Central Committee in the weeks after the retreat on Marxist concepts and theories, formed the basis of their pamphlet, The Ideology of the Young Lords Party. As prelude to discussions of Puerto Rican history and class struggle, militarization and the economy, and other subjects, the document defined major terms including capitalism, class, the state, vende patria, contradiction.
Vende patria means sell out.
Gotcha. So basically gusano as well, right? Another word for gusano?
Exactly. You could say that.
Gotcha. Contradiction, dialectics, and Afro-Boricua. One of its many fresh and engaging passages explains often obfuscated concepts like dialectical materialism. All Puerto Ricans concerned with their people must begin to see things in a scientific way. The scientist asks, quote, what would be the best way of getting through this problem and to my goal? And then the scientist lays out each step one by one until the goal is reached. This is the way we must lay out the revolution, using our passion, our feeling to keep us going step by step until we are free. This means that we will become dialectical materialists. What does this mean? First, take the word dialectics. Dialectics is a study of contradictions. Yep. The document's analysis of the unconscious character of sexism and racism and how each manifests among Puerto Ricans and people of color are also impressive and still resonate today. Its discussion of, quote, colonized mentality, unquote, internalized inferiority and inadequacy, and senseless conflicts among the oppressed is an organic distillation of Frantz Fanon's theory and the psychological fallout of colonial domination on the colonized. Yep. That 43-page premiere, which borrowed its title from the Black Panther pamphlet, The Ideology of the Black Panther Party, would come to epitomize both the young lords' great strivings and their great failings. While the Young Lords' boots on the ground project in Puerto Rico was fueled by many sources, their perspective reflected a broader trend in the domestic movement regarding struggles elsewhere around the globe. In the early 1970s, repression, exhaustion, and pessimism about the prospects of revolution at home set a significant number of Black American or New African activist sites on revolutionary movements in Africa, and many moved there. Dozens of members of the Black Panther Party found political sanctuary abroad during the period in countries like Algeria, Ghana, and Tanzania. In Ghana, they joined a wave of Black radicals who had settled there a decade earlier. Other currents in Other currents in the Black freedom movement focus exclusively on support work for African independence movements in Angola, Zimbabwe, and Guinea Bissau. I don't know how to pronounce that last one. Guinea Bissau, and the Black consciousness movement in South Africa. The focus on internal events was also fed by the persistence of racism and white reaction to the justice claims of Black Americans and other racially oppressed groups. The nationalist fervor created by struggles abroad and difficulties at home reinforce ideas adopted by many radicals more than a decade earlier, that racially oppressed people in the United States represented distinct nations rather than racialized groups within the nation. Yep. Taken to its logical conclusion, the theory assumed that these groups might, if they so desired, form independent nations apart from the United States. The status of Puerto Ricans occupied a special place in these debates. Puerto Ricans constitute the only racialized group with the possibility of identifying a landmass outside of the continental US as their homeland. The group's divide nation thesis, quote unquote, telescoped this possibility. Do we continue or do we stop here?
This where we end.
Right on. That was awesome. Holy shit.
Yeah. I thought this was a real significant chapter. Because we see what stands out to me, we see that like the Young Lords is wrestling with several different issues. They're wrestling with the party building. What does that mean? What direction should they go? Should they go follow the Eldridge Cleaver line, which we say today is adventurism? You dig what I'm saying? It was
accelerationism.
Yeah, prematurely trying to like hasten the revolution by engaging in guerrilla armed struggle against the United States without the masses behind it politically and consciously. You know what I mean? We also see in this with the Puerto Ricans, what does it mean to be part of a nation? The national question, like, do we organize mainly on the United States, and or do we like relocate to Puerto Rico and we start to build that basis for national liberation on the island? I think a lot of people, and I want to hear what Che has to say on this before I really say too much on this question, but I think a lot of people see this as the decline of the Young Lords based on some of the decisions that they were making. But I like the fact that Johanna ties this into what was the political climate of the times. Like they talk about some of the Young Lords started to feel like, well, maybe the Serve the People program ain't really revolutionary. Like that's just voluntarism and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And then others thinking that we need to follow Eldridge Cleaver and engage in guerrilla warfare. You know what I mean? That was the times. You know what I mean? The Young Lords was inspired by the original Black Panther Party. Then with people going across the world, leaving the United States and going to Ghana and Tanzania, these other African, Algeria, these other African countries, it started to raise the question, should we go back to Puerto Rico? You know what I mean? Should we fight? Is that where our main fight should be? So I think this puts in like a historical context of the times why they were making the decisions they were making. How do you look at this period of time, Che, with the Young Lords making this change in their positioned on a lot of different levels.
I think a lot of that division that happened, I think that was part of COINTELPRO. You know, there was some agents involved in bringing about a split in the party. You know, it began with Richard Perez and it began with Panama and so on. So it was you know, COINTELPRO took a big bite of the young laws. And that big bite, one of the big bites was to divide us, you know, because remember, we are a nation. Regardless, I mean, I take the position that we was a nation, regardless whether we are in Puerto Rico or whether we here. That's like African Americans saying that they're not Africans because they're not in Africa. They are
Right.
Africans, regardless.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and that's what we have to do. Puerto Ricans are Puerto Ricans regardless of where we at in the world. We're Puerto Ricans, and there's only one nation, not two nations. But the impact of COINTELPRO amongst our people, just like among the within the Black Panther Party, it did it in the Young Laws, you know, and one of the people, I hate to say it, but one of the people who was a possibility of an agent, guess who? Felipe Luciano. You know, a lot of people don't. You know, he was very. I mean,
Jay, you there?
They cut his mic.
I was
I
just
Federally.
fucking time.
I, I just recently attempted to contact Felipe so that he could come to the Attica Rebellion, to the Attica event. He didn't even respond to that, you know, at all. You know, and I mean, just let's remember, he also was involved in a movie that called itself Fort Apache, and Fort Apache was depicting Puerto Ricans throughout the United States as well as throughout Puerto Rico as drug addicts, as pimps, as prostitutes, as hustlers. You know, it was a negative connotation that this movie gave to our people, and Felipe Luciano was part of that making. And Panama, Panama, and a few other brothers, we went to somewhere in the Bronx. I forgot exactly where now. You know, I lost it for a minute. But we went to the Bronx because that's where the movie formulated, you know, for the Apaches in the Bronx. And so we went to the Bronx to see all the actors and we protested, you know, and Felipe didn't like that. Felipe did not like that at all, that we protested against this film, you know. But nevertheless, going back to this whole nation thing, Puerto Ricans are one. You know, when Puerto Ricans go to Puerto Rico, one of the things that they say is that oh, you're a gringo. And a lot of Puerto Ricans call us gringos because we wasn't born there. But that we need to understand that that's the philosophy, that's the concept of capitalism. Capitalism will try to divide people in order to keep them divided. You know,
Right.
and it was the same with Don Pedro Albizu Campos, man. The Nationalist Party, they divided the National Party, especially a lot of nationalists that were born here in the United States. They were considered by the state, by the system, as non-political, as they were, you know, Americans, you know, and that created within the nation itself, it created a lot of dissension, you know. So no, we are not a divided nation. We are one nation, and that's it. Just like the Africans are one nation, regardless of where you're at in life, you know. And I mean that's all I have to say for now.
What's your thoughts about them switching strategy and wanting to pretty much focus on Puerto Rico? A lot of people started to go to Puerto Rico and left the United States with the work they was doing here.
We you know, I always oppose that. I opposed it on one ground, that a lot of the party, the people that they sent to Puerto Rico, the party, they couldn't relate. They couldn't relate to the people. You know, Juan Gonzalez could not talk. Juan Gonzalez doesn't even hardly talk Spanish. You know, and who else they sent? Who else they sent over there? They sent a few other people. I just don't remember. But no, I oppose that. I oppose so wholeheartedly because of the fact that you got to first go to Puerto Rico and develop your roots. You got to develop. You got to organize. You got to organize and develop roots and develop, you know, an alliance with the people. Just like if they would have done that in the church, in the people's church, they would never got the support of the people. But because they develop alliances and they develop a strong unity amongst the people. That's how they were able to be successful in the church. The same thing in Puerto Rico. They should have went there, not as, oh, I'm here to organize you. No, I'm here to help. I'm here to contribute. You know,
Right.
but at least, man, go there speaking Spanish. You know, because the fact is that even if you spoke English, the fact is that we know that the English language in Puerto Rico is colonized. You know, it's colonialism. You know, but nevertheless, you need to go to Puerto Rico and develop ties with the Nationalist Party. The Nationalist Party has roots in the people. You know, you shouldn't go there. No, but they went over there to develop the Young Law Party, and I think that was wrong. I personally feel that was totally wrong. That's like taking the Black Panther Party and taking it to Algiers and say, here you go. This is the Black Panther Party. Now you support. Now you get involved and do your work. No, it doesn't go like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't go like that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think that was like one of their biggest, and I've heard that repeatedly by elders and historians. They talk about the Young Lords. That was probably one of their biggest mistakes. I understand where it comes from. I understand why they did it, but I think it was premature. You know what I mean? Like you said, I think they should have went over there. Even if they built a chapter over there, like you said, they should have connected with the people that was already doing the work in the community, related with me, got to know the conditions. They should have learned how to speak Spanish too. You know what I'm saying? To be able to better relate to the people and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
I think that was a big mistake. And then it was like abandoning the liberation movement that was interrelated with the movement over here in the United States. I don't feel like, for instance, anybody in the Caribbean, if you was born over here, like you can leave here and go back to Caribbean and stuff without uh continuing the work of the diaspora over here. You know what I mean? That's a
Yeah,
part of that same collective struggle, and that's equally important work. You know what I'm saying? It's just
yeah,
work you have to approach differently based on the fact of the conditions is different. The some of the cultural things are different, the language and all those different things. So yeah,
everything.
I think that's
Everything.
something I feel like we in our generation definitely. I think the young lords in this generation is learned that mistake. They go to Puerto Rico, but they go over there to help. You know what I mean? It's not like they're trying to go
Yeah,
over there and tell everybody, you gotta follow us. We know all the answers. Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? They go over there. I remember when Subi and them went over there last year, they worked on rehabbing a senior facility or something like that over there. You know what I mean? Connecting with the people, going over there,
connected.
uh, doing stuff to help the people and saying we're here to be a part and contribute in whatever way we can. Not to come over here to
Exactly.
be think like the American imperialists and say arrogantly, we know all the answers and y'all must follow us if y'all want y'all liberation. I
Exactly.
think
Exactly.
I think that
Yeah,
comes off just like American cultural imperialism. You know what I'm saying? To people
yeah,
that's looking at like you're not even from over here. You know what I mean? Like you don't even know
yeah.
like what we're dealing with over here. You know what I mean? So it's just like me coming down here to Florida now. You know what I mean? I'm gonna hook up with the Young Lords, the Poor People's Army, one of the Brown Berets out here, and ask them, what can I do? What can I do to help y'all build down here? What can I contribute? Not come down here and tell everybody what they supposed to be doing down here in Florida. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's just we have to be very scientific in how we apply the mass line, because that's really what it's about, applying the mass lines, hearing the people,
Yeah.
listening to people,
Yeah.
and relating to them. You dig what I'm saying? Let me go to, and then I saw Captain Africa's hand.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on, comrade. Right on. No, yeah. What y'all were saying was 100% true. And when they decided to transport the Young Lord party into Puerto Rico. First off, like what y'all said, I feel like they should have just added a chapter in Puerto Rico. You know, not move their whole party over there. And second, by them deciding to do that, you know, by them deciding to move over there, it felt like they were abandoning the Puerto Rican diaspora of the United States. You know, it felt like they were abandoning the people that they fought for in the U.S. in East Harlem, in the Bronx. It felt like they were it felt like they were abandoning the liberation movement that they had already participated in and started in the United States, you know, and them focusing to solely support Puerto Ricans and go solely to Puerto Rico instead of seeing it as an interconnected issue for liberation, you know, because all of the oppressions of all these colonized groups, Puerto Ricans, New Africans, Cubans, they're all interconnected. You know, they all relate to one another in some way. So by them only wanting to focus on Puerto Rico and not focus on struggling alongside and building unity and a united front with other oppressed colonized groups, it felt like they were abandoning internationalism. You know, it felt like they were abandoning being an international movement. You know, because I've said this before, communism can only exist on an international level. So if your primary thing is nationalism, but not an internationalist analysis, and if you're not wanting to build unity with other oppressed groups for the liberation of the mass as a whole, and you're focusing on your own liberation and your own nation's liberation instead of everyone else, you come off as what's the word, commandist, if I remember correctly. So yeah.
No doubt, comrade. Yeah, I totally agree. You know, that was my issue. I think a lot of people issue is like y'all was abandoning your own Puerto Rican diaspora. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's really like this was your foundation. Like, why would you leave your foundation? You know what I mean? To go to some to a land that you really not familiar with. You know, that's something that comes in time from building relationships. But to up and leave and, you know, supplant your whole party over there, like I think that was like the biggest blunder. One of the other things, and I spoke to this earlier, is that I think they was I give them the benefit of doubt of being young and being the first generation to try to wrestle with these questions. I'm thinking in my head myself. I remember in prison when I was reading up on Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, Vanguard Party, Central Committee, you know, party formation, all these different type of things. Like these things were things that took me time to like understand. And even when I got out of prison and I ended up joining a couple of different organizations and stuff, it was like I was learning in the process. You know what I mean? So seeing these young, they were much younger than me. They were half my age when they were doing this. I commend them for giving that willing to make mistakes, you know what I'm saying, and jump out there and be a part of history and stuff. So that's one of the ways I can forgive them from some of the mistakes they made, is because they like at that time they didn't have, like, we got them to look back. We can look back to that history, that time, and see things a lot more clearly because we have that historical precedent that the Panthers, Young Lord, and all those different organizations laid for us. So that's one of my biggest problems, is when people make the same mistake again. You know what I'm saying? Like, our generation don't have no excuse. You know what I mean? When I see different organizations, and I'm not gonna name names, that don't do political education, it's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't understand how important this is, or some of the different questions that we have our ancestors already answered for us. Like, we're not questioning if we're a colony no more. You know what I'm saying? That's not even no question no more. They answered that question. We're not questioning if male chauvinism and patriarchy is something that we should maintain within our movements or not. No, we have to struggle against that, all forms of oppression. Uh the gay liberation movement, which they called it back then, the LGBTQ plus movement, like that was already analyzed by Huey and the Panthers and that time back then. Like, we shouldn't be questioning stuff that they've already wrestled with and put forth those different two line struggles on and came to a resolution on. So that's one thing I say I would have a bigger problem, not so much with them, the mistakes they made in the past, but if our generation repeats some of those same questions that they wrestle with and don't find the proper scientific resolution. I have a real problem with that, because I don't feel like we learning from the past. You know what I'm saying? We're idolizing it and putting it in some type of glorification category without peeling back the layers and understand the essence of what they were struggling against and struggling for. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Uh, so yeah, even though I got my criticism, I do give them a pass only because of that, because they were young, because they were the first. You know what I'm saying? But we in our generation cannot make these same mistakes.
We can't. We gotta
If
learn.
Subi and them talk about going over to Puerto Rico and they leave it, we should struggle against that. Like, as the Second Rainbow Coalition, hey, comrade, well, we don't get involved in internal politics, but, like, do you really think that's a good choice to, like, y'all all leave the United States mainland and go over there? Like, do you remember when that happened to the Young Lords? Like, we should struggle with our comrades. You know what I'm saying? If we see them going down a different path and repeating the same errors of the past. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Struggle
I
about that.
agree.
Go ahead.
We're gonna struggle about that one. I was just being sarcastic. That's all.
Oh yeah, we gonna struggle about that, Subi.
Exactly.
You jump on here and you watch this, Subi, we gonna struggle against you. But I think you're doing the right thing though, Subi. Like, you got the correct balance of going over there, supporting the people without abandoning the diaspora over here. So
Right on.
to you.
Yes.
Captain, well, go ahead. You had something else?
Oh no, I was gonna say that, yeah, especially because even though Puerto Ricans are a nation, the materialistic conditions and needs of Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico are not going to be the same as the materialistic conditions and needs of Puerto Ricans in the United States. They're not going to be the same. How you apply a scientific and class analysis to engage in elevating and meeting the masses where they're at in the Puerto Rican community in the United States is not going to be the same in Puerto Rico. So them just totally abandoning the Puerto Ricans in the U.S. and going to try and going to their and moving their whole party to Puerto Rico without even understanding wholly the materialistic conditions there was odd.
Mm-hmm. No, that. Go ahead, Che, and then we get to you, Africa. If you still got a statement you wanted to.
We need to understand that Puerto Rico is the oldest colony in the Western Hemisphere,
Mm.
the oldest.
Oldest.
Puerto Ricans became what they became, divided divided as a result of colonialism in Puerto Rico. You know,
Yeah.
there was a time, 1934 to about almost close to 1940, where the Puerto Ricans in schools were forced to speak the English language.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody in Puerto Rico at that time were to salute their own flag and pledge allegiance to their own flag, they would go to jail for 10 years.
Mm.
That's real.
Yeah, I
That was
remember.
real.
Well, I remember
Yes.
just that.
So you could understand that in spite of it all, you know, we are a confused nation. I'm sorry to say it, we are a confused nation. Today we don't even know what the hell we want. You know, but
Yeah.
there's a reason for that too.
Right,
You
right,
know, there's a reason for that too. And young laws and with the contribution of the Black Panther Party, et cetera, et cetera, you know, a lot of Puerto Ricans have awoken to the fact that we are economy and
right,
began struggling with other people, you
right.
know. But that's over here. That's not over there. But just keep in mind, just over there, the National Party has been working for many years, you know, because the Pedro Campo, man, when he came out the Air Force, the Army, and he went back to went back to Puerto Rico, the first thing he did was change all the policies of the National Party over there, because the National Party over there believed in capitalism. So he changed that, and he said, "No, we're gonna take it to the ultimate." And what happened? A lot of nationalists got killed.
Mm-hmm.
The massacre happened. The A whole lot of massacres in Puerto Rico. I'm
Right.
not going to talk about them. But the thing
Yeah.
is, you know, that we are a colonized people. You know, just like African Americans in this country are a colonized people. You know, and we, you know, slowly but surely, we're waking up to the fact that we need to do something for our people. Just about 2 years ago, I think it was about 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago, a massive demonstration in Puerto Rico to overthrow the presidency at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You know, who was stealing money, man? Stealing this is a crook.
Right.
I mean, he was a crook. But there was a massive demonstration that had never happened, and they took him out of office. And just
Yeah.
like they did that, little by little, you know, we coming to our senses, you know, and we beginning to organize ourselves. Puerto Rico is much more organized than it was in the 30s and the 40s. That's all I got to say.
Captain Africa, did you have something you want to add?
Yo, I just said, hold up, I'm trying to take the mute off like you could hear me. All power to the people.
All right.
How's everybody doing?
All right.
Doing good.
Yeah, I apologize for being late. Like I want to make it my duty to be here every week at this at 7 o'clock. Yo, I don't even know where to start. Because like everything that we're talking about right now, that this conversation that we're having is so poignant to what's going on right now in our lives. Not just our lives, all of our lives. But yo, we just walked in the house and I was gonna log on to come listen to the class to do the study group. But as soon as we came in the house, a video was released of the police killing somebody in the over here. But we had been going back and forth demanding the video to be released because they said in the video that what they did was consensual, like they did a perfect job. All of this stuff that they said that they were justified. When we look at the video, it was totally the opposite. So we were stuck. Like we watched the video. We like my mouth was like, I sent it to you, Kwame. You ain't see it yet because you're doing the class. So you'll see it later when you're done. I mean, but like my mouth was open, like for real. And then I come to the class because we're dealing with some issues over here. Mr. Jorge, Comrade Jorge, I need you here.
Yeah.
This is coming to you. I'm bringing this all the way to you. I need you. So when I come and I put the video on, and I hear the first thing I hear on the video is really Comrade Jorge. I'm saying your name correct, Jorge?
Yeah, you could call me Jorge, but really my name is Che.
Yo, Che, friend. Hey, Che, look. So the first thing I come on is I hear you talking about Felipe Luciano. So, cause like the stuff that we going on, that we dealing with here, and you're talking about spies and people that were in there to disrupt the movement and things like that. And like Felipe Luciano be on WBAI, he be on documentaries. We're going through gentrification in the city. They're making everybody homeless. There are no jobs. There's nothing. And it's black and brown people in power. Felipe Luciano come to Newark and he gives social credibility to Ras Baraka, the mayor. And I've seen he's been doing this for years, for over 10 years now. He's been coming to the city, talking about the young laws, all this stuff they be doing. And I know he see the homeless people on the streets. He know what's going on in the city. But they have the platform to be able to spew all that rhetoric, but never give no solution. Talk about intercommunalism. Exactly what you were talking about a second ago. You can't just go to Puerto Rico and just say, I'm here to liberate the people. There are groups already there. You say link up with the Nationalist Party. That's what you go in there and you build roots with people. But those people, like Felipe Luciano, they're not interested in that. So now in the city right now, the video that was just released, after we watch the video, we're going to take action. The people that are in our way of taking action is the people like Felipe Luciano of this time, right now, as we speaking. They don't want us to speak when there are rallies, when there's stuff being done. They have made up their mind to isolate our group because we're not the Felipe Luciano. We're not the managerial class Negroes going in to ask for stuff like complaint review boards that are going to be filled with more Uncle Toms and more sellouts. Like, we don't want stuff like that. We're not demanding that they write some policy because they're never going to write a policy. Yo, I want to ask you, how do we hold the Felipe Lucianos accountable in real time? So like 40, 30 years later, he is not making money exploiting the struggle that good people fought for and gave their lives for. I mean, so like, how do we deal with we need to deal with these people like tomorrow. I have to deal with Larry Ham. I have to deal with Al Sharpton, because these are the people that are controlling the movement over here in the city. They're the one that are platformed by the cameras, by the news. They're the one platformed by the politicians, because they're not there to solve the issues. They're there to get money, grants for their NGOs and the work that they do, like distracting the people on the plantation. How do we deal? Like, if you had to do it all over again, how would you deal with Felipe Luciano?
Okay. And I want to say this for the record, because I know this is the first time he came up in this context on this right here. Like, we're not saying the Second Rainbow Coalition is saying he's an agent or nothing like this. This come in of the conversation with an elder that was back in that time, and this is how he feels. And these are the discussions that were going on around that time. You dig what I'm saying? I know the same thing goes on with the original Black Panther Party, and there's certain people within the legacy of the original Black Panther Party that people feel some type of way about. So I just want to put that caveat in there just so people understand that's watching this. Like, this is a discussion. This is why we have these discussions, because we have room to have reanalyze the past. You dig what I'm saying? But to answer your question in particular, Mal, you ever read Combat Liberalism?
Oh, I was asking Jorge.
Oh, you was asking me. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. I was asking Jorge. Hey, no. Hey, when Jorge finished, but you could come back.
I think that what needs to be done is a critical analysis of the situation. You need to go back and read Mao and what he has to say about criticism, and then take it from there. I mean, there's a lot of ways that could be done to expose these people You know, I'm just trying to be careful, man, because we on the mic.
Hey,
And
hey, look, don't worry. I'm gonna hit you back later. I'm gonna go through the
yeah,
Kwame, and I'm gonna hit you later. We gonna talk.
go, go to my
Oh,
Facebook. Go to my Facebook.
but yeah, I would just follow up with what you said, Elder. That like Mal, I think combat liberalism was one of the best pieces he wrote. How if the party is going to stay a revolutionary party, you got to hold your leaders accountable. You know what I mean? The opportunistic type of tendencies that various leaders might portray and project in their leadership, like it has to be combat by the other cadre leaders. There's a part of the central committee. You dig what I'm saying? So I say it's easier said than done. You dig what I'm saying? Because every organization deals with two line struggle, and not all two line struggle is necessarily a person just being opportunistic. It might be a person that hasn't developed political consciousness. But if you sit on a central committee of any organization, you should only be on that central committee if you have the political consciousness to understand your actions. That's what I think. You know what I'm saying? So, in my opinion, I think that's what it has to be. Like the leaders in leadership has to hold the other leaders accountable. Like you cannot go along with stuff just because a person is charismatic, might have a lot of clout. No, you got to struggle against that. And the leaders that are a principle that does have integrity, that is keeping politics in command, y'all have to rally together to challenge those tendencies within the party. You know what I'm saying? We saw the same thing with the original Black Panther Party. You know what I'm saying? Like Huey P. Newton. Let's just call it what it was, man. Like there was times that Huey P. Newton was very commandous, was very much opportunistic. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of those leaders went along with it because Huey in time became like the symbol of the party. No one person should be the face of a party. Democratic centralism don't work like that. It's a collective process of those that sit on that committee hold each other accountable. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Not
how
one.
Russia. That's how Russia fell.
Yeah.
Once Stalin came in and he became one man leader. You know.
Well,
Uh,
that's another uh uh argument. I know there's probably comrades over here might disagree with you on there. I don't fully, and I'm one of those comrades will tell you honestly, if I don't know something in history and I only got a limited understanding, I really can't speak to it because I've heard both sides. I heard people say one thing and other people say another, but that that
yeah.
but the history I do know is the Black Panther Party. You know what I'm saying? And I do know that
Yeah.
at times
Yeah.
they allowed different leaders to become one person leader. You know what I mean? And there wasn't no democratic centralism. People didn't hold people accountable. That to me is the way that you have to root out the ones that's doing stuff and ain't taking what will I say constructive criticism, ain't once they've been suspended or whatever from the party a different time, they come back and they keep on repeating the same behavior. Like it has to be rooted out. You know what I'm saying? I don't see no other alternative. Or we gonna do the same thing to those movements in the '60s did, and we gonna fall by the wayside. Because let's keep it 100. Like if Huey P. Newton didn't degenerate in a lot of ways, the Black Panther Party would have been a strong party for a long time. You know what I mean? Even with the defection, uh, the split with Eldridge and him. You know what I'm saying? Uh, they would have been a strong party still if he would have kept politics in the command. If they would have held accountability within the leadership. You know what I'm saying? They would have just consolidated it. You know what I'm saying? But it would have made the party even stronger, though. You know what I'm saying? And they would have been able to
Yeah.
rebuild
Yeah.
stronger than they were before all this adventurism and COINTELPRO stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it makes you accessible to infiltration a lot easier when your leaders are opportunistic and engaging in liberalism and commandism. Like, because now you start overlooking different structural things that you have in place to combat some of those things. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Jorge, do it. I go to Gabby.
You know, when we was in Attica and we was asking for various leaders of our community to come to Attica to observe the situation and support us as well. Bobby Seals came, but he only stood 5 minutes and he left. I don't understand. I never, up to this day, a lot of people in Attica held many ideas pertaining to how he dealt with the situation. Because he came with a few Panthers and they sat in the table. I was there. And they said a few words, but it wasn't nothing to think about. And then they stood up and then they left. You know, I mean, there was other people who we asked for them to come and they refused. I ain't gonna talk about who they are. They refused to come, you know, and that really it made a lot of people feel very bad about it, you know. But nevertheless, man, you know, we were strong. That didn't weaken us. We were strong. And we remained strong up until the point when he came in, man, and slaughtered many of us. You know,
Right.
So I don't know. In reference to what the brother was saying, I think what you need to do is just critically analyze the situation and put out a paper if need to, and just put your critical analysis on it, you know, and talk about what you got in a particular person. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do know, but you know, me and that brother will talk later.
Yeah. And I just say this is way harder said than done, because you know, human beings have a tendency to like promote a cult of personality around people. You know what I mean? And they can do no wrong in people's eyes and people will still support. You know what I'm saying? And that's something we got to wrestle against, like at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? I would say, and I want to, and I'm just making this statement. I haven't really thought about this until this is the second time you brought this up. But I was thinking this, when Bobby Seale came to Attica, I'm trying to think in my head historically. That's when the Panthers was starting to have a lot of internal stuff, right? With the split with
Yeah.
Huey and Eldridge.
Yeah. I was during that time, yeah.
Yeah. I forget when Bobby Seale was expelled from the party, but I know the party was becoming weak in a lot of their effectiveness because of the split that was going on, the COINTELPRO stuff. I don't know. I would love to hear from Bobby Seale. Why did he like come and then kind of, I mean, let's keep it 100, abandon y'all. You know what I mean? Was there something internally going on that you realized like you couldn't bring the party to fully support the Attica situation because the internal stuff that's going on? Like, I would definitely love to ask him that question, because to me, I thought that was like a big abandonment of a major prison liberation movement that was actually had an opportunity to like galvanize the prison liberation movement like no other, and really make fundamental changes within all the prisons around the whole country. So I would love to ask Bobby Seale, what was your reason? Like, was there something going on where you didn't feel like you could get the party behind y'all? Is that right? Or what was the reason? You know what I mean?
That's what I say, man. In reference also to Farrakhan, man. You know, Farrakhan refused to come. He told his people he don't go, don't go.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't understand it because a lot of black Muslims that were circling the hostages and protecting them from any danger, you know, we're Muslims, we're black Muslims. So I don't understand. When we asked for the black Muslims to come to 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 uh to negotiating table and talk, you know, we also asked the black Muslims, the Nation of Islam, to come. And they refused. They totally refused to come. And that was a hurting feeling for the Muslims that were in the yard, because the Muslims in the yard were sweating, they were working hard, man, you know, and they were doing a righteous deed, you know.
Yeah.
So for
I think
Muslims
that's
in the
Elijah Muhammad was still alive too, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I ain't gonna lie, I can understand why the black Muslims, because they was really apolitical. Like, they was talking that stuff, but they wasn't out here trying to revolutionize society and go against the system for real, for real. You know what I mean? That's why I think Malcolm X stood apart from them. I think Malcolm X even knew he had to eventually lead them because they was too passive. Like, you know, you a lot of rhetoric. You know what I mean? You can talk all this stuff, but if you ain't out here trying to build a revolutionary movement and y'all got numbers like that, then y'all just all talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just like, you know, a lot of young laws later on became so-called representatives in our community. You should know who I'm talking about. You know, they became representatives in our community and they totally forgot about politics. They wasn't talking now no more revolutionary or organizing or national independence for Puerto Rico. They were now reporters, you know, announcers, journey, a lot of things they were doing in a community, but they wasn't doing it in our favor.
That's why I salute y'all, like elders like you and High Thurman and David Rivera. Like, man, to be in this struggle 50 years and understand like this protracted struggle is a protracted struggle. Like, just
Yeah.
because one fighter, you know, dealt that a blow by COINTELPRO and internal different things, like y'all still pushing revolutionary politics. Like, y'all right now, what you do in these book readings by coming on here and talking about the Young Lord history and giving your analysis, that's significant. You know what I'm saying? That's significant because we, like, that legacy is being passed on to us. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all are not gonna
Yeah.
die in vain because we're going to listen to what y'all say, internalize this, and make sure our generation is more prepared. You dig what I'm saying? So I salute
Yeah.
all our
Yeah.
elders, you know what I mean, that's still in this fight with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gabby, you got your hand up?
Yeah, comrades. First off, I just want to say that just like Kwame, I highly appreciate you coming here, Che. Like, seriously, your analysis, your guidance, your wisdom, it's awesome, man. Like I'm saying, the world can't handle three Che's. They can't. They can't handle three of you. but but
I hope I'm included in that.
oh hell yeah, both of you, like shit, the U.S. The U.S. can't handle three of you guys. They can't. But no, yeah, exactly as you were saying, because regardless of who these revolutionaries are, right? Because even these revolutionaries, right, that end up becoming the figurehead of a revolution because they embody the principles of what that revolution stands for. You know, Che, Huey P. Newton, Lenin, Mao, Marx, Engels. At the end of the day, they're still human beings. You know, they fuck up, they make mistakes. Marx, like, even Karl Marx himself made mistakes. He was right about a lot of stuff, but he still had blunders. He still had he still had things that he still said things that were incorrect, primarily his analysis on the lumpen proletariat. But regardless, the whole point as revolutionaries and for our movements, the whole point for us as dialectical materialists and scientific socialists is to look back at these movements and at these figureheads, right? Or at these figures rather, and look at what they got right, what they got wrong, what's applicable, what isn't, and how can we move class struggle forward in our time? How can we provide for our communities, and how can we apply the principles of Marxism to our current materialistic conditions? Because every single revolution that was successful, every single communist movement and organization that was successful and that was dialectical, whether it be the Bolsheviks or whether it be the original Panthers before they became revisionist, they were successful because they adapted to their ever-changing materialistic conditions. They adapted, they improved, they changed how they applied their ideological and political line, and how they expanded upon it to fit their current materialistic needs. And we have to do the same. We have to analyze the mistakes that they made, primarily the mistakes that they made, so that way we don't do the same thing. Because again, they were human beings. We can't idealize them or romanticize these movements or these people in the past as if they were perfect and as if they had no faults. Like they had faults. Like as revolutionaries, I respect Lenin and Stalin, but as people, they were dickheads. They were jackasses from what I hear as people. From what I've heard, and they made mistakes. Karl Marx, Engels, hell, even Huey P. Newton, made mistakes, and especially during towards the end of his life, as you said, Comrade Kwame, he engaged in a lot of commandist behavior. He engaged in certain individualistic behavior. Unfortunately, he started to stray from the original ideological and political line of the party, and he started to go towards the reformist side. Unfortunately, So the whole point is that we learn from them. It's not idealize them, but so that our movements can do better, so that way we can apply the principles and strategies that worked, the universal universal teachings of Marxism and of Pantherism now to our current movements. That's the whole point. It's dialectical materialists.
Yeah, and I'll just emphasize this one more time. If we rely on the morality of a leader by himself, we're making a mistake. Like, we should have structures in place that one person can't decide everything. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
We should have structures in a place that hold anybody accountable. Like us in the Second Rainbow Coalition, as we develop, y'all gonna see like how we've been trying to structure it. Like, I'm one of the founding members, but I don't want it where I can dictate everything, the direction of the Second Rainbow Coalition. One day I'm gonna die. I might be the principal person. I make mistakes too, but let's just say I'm the most principal person. You know what I'm saying? That's not a structure that you want to have in place where everything is dependent on one individual and their moral compass at any given time. Because that, like dialectical materialism teaches us, people turn into their opposites. Well, if that happens, you have to have structures in place and different, like when we talk about democratic centralism, that means holding people accountable. That means like there's not no one person that can dictate everything. You know what I'm saying? And I will hold them other leaders accountable that allow that process to devolve into something where commanders line can reign, where one person can dictate some opportunistic stuff within the party. You know what I'm saying? So we as leaders, and this is what I want to get out of people that come to these book readings, especially my days. You know, I'm not I'm not always able to jump on all the other days, but on my days, I want, if you don't get nothing out of what these book readers is talk about historically and all the science and stuff, if you don't get none of that stuff out of there, which I hope you do, but one thing I want you to leave away from this is that we're developing leaders that are willing to hold their other comrades accountable to the revolution. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody on here, I respect. I respect all you comrades that's on here. But at the end of the day, we have to hold each other accountable. You know what I'm saying? It's bigger than one. It's bigger than us as individuals. Like this is the future on the line. This is our generations to come, that when we die and go on, you know what I mean? Like people is gonna take our place. Like we have to be preparing the ground for them to take up this torch and keep it going in the right direction. One of the things I look at a lot of communist movements, it fails when people come to power. You know what I'm saying? Because other leaders don't hold all the other leaders accountable. You know what I mean? They start to see stuff that happens. They start to see opportunistic liberalist factions being established within the party, and they allow it to grow. You know what I mean? And then the revolution is eventually overthrown. Like I don't want to be in a situation where we come to power like China or Russia, and then the revisionists get a foothold within the state and they overthrow all the stuff that we worked so hard to get rid of. Like, come on, man. Like, I'm not doing this for this. You know what I mean? I'm sacrificing my life because I want that to be the outcome. But we have to start right now, today, every day, holding all of our leaders accountable. Again, like you right, Comrade Gabby, we gonna make mistakes. You know what I'm saying? But it's if you keep on repeating them same mistakes. Do you learn from the mistakes? Do you try to go correct those mistakes and not repeat those mistakes? That's one thing. That's one thing, because you actually learn. We can actually work with comrades like that. But if you have a way of always trying to, utilize your position of power, your position to be on opportunistic stuff and all, like, come on, man. Like we have to rectify those issues, because you're not growing. You're going to keep on, you're creating a culture of opportunism, a liberalism, a commandism. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta challenge that, comrades. Within your organization, no matter what organization you're in, challenge that, because our whole collective mission is going to be rest upon how much we keep each other accountable. How we going to lead the people and try to guide them if we don't even hold ourselves accountable? You know what I mean?
It's impossible.
Yeah. So that's one thing. I think that was a good part of this discussion. I know we've been on here 2 hours, about an hour and a half that we've been on this discussion, but I enjoyed this as always. You know what I mean? Look forward to seeing y'all Sunday. I'll try to be on there Sunday if I don't have nothing going on. Sunday around 2 p.m. Comrade Gabby is gonna be leading this. I want to say what's up to the comrade Sean and Yessie. Sorry if y'all wanted to jump in. I didn't see nobody raise their hand. I know we got to going and talking about a lot of different stuff, but man, I definitely want whenever y'all jump in this book reading, always jump in. I want to hear y'all ideas, what y'all got out of it. I know y'all came in at the end of it, but this was a good chapter. If you get a chance, read over it again. It was page 33 to page about 2. Let me see. 3. Was that 3? Yeah, 333 to 345. That was a real good chapter. We're talking about the how the young lords some of the decisions they were making, how they were wrestling with different contradictions that actually brought about the decline of the Young Lords. So I think that's a good chapter to go over, to check out. You know what I mean? But with that said, comrades, it's always a pleasure listening to y'all. I'm always honored to be able to be in y'all presence as well. You know what I mean? And to hear y'all ideals. I don't look at any of us as bigger than the next person. We all are contributing to the struggle together. So
We're all the same.
people, comrades.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just going to say one final quote that ties into what we were saying. I'm not a liberator. Liberators do not exist. The people liberate themselves. Che Guevara. Always remember that, y'all. Always remember that.
No doubt. Powerful.
All power.
But y'all have a good day. Good night. All power to the people.
Okay.
All power.
Have a good night, y'all.
You too.
Thank you.